Now, the most important level right now on the stock market is the Nasdaq $12,000 level, this dotted line right here. Yesterday, I told everyone if you get below this and you hold, if you can hold below this level and it turns into a resistance, you are bearish. What happened today? Now, we're going to start talking about exactly why you started bouncing into this as well and what you need to be looking out for with the market going into tomorrow, because you had a really great bounce and ultimately you turned 12,000 into a support and started moving back towards the upside and ultimately hitting that monthly level right there at around 12.3. But what's next and where are we going from here, specifically on the SPY and some of your favorite stocks? Before we get into that, I ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I'm making videos for you, giving you the updates with the news and the key speakers going into the next day so you are not missing a beat. Yesterday, I anticipated a drop. I thought we'd lose the $12,000 level, but again, I warned you, if you did not, you would bounce. So I gotta say right now, what happened to me, I want to be totally transparent. I had one trade on the day, but after that, I did not trade. I had target puts going into this. I had about a $350 loss, 1% on the options account. Not that big, but I like to stay transparent with you, the viewer, so you can know that even I do lose at some point in time, right? So going into this, where are we looking for us to go to? How are we looking for us to move? I want to look at both sides of the market. I want to look at ES and I want to look at Nasdaq. And ES is going to represent the S&P. Nasdaq, obviously, QQQ, and the Nasdaq. So what's happening here? ES is holding the 3,900 level. Okay, this is a very significant level. Again, I told everyone yesterday, we went over all these levels, what was happening here. Now, I like personally charting Nasdaq more because I spend most of my time there throughout the day. And typically, it's been leading the market. I want to highlight this downtrend that you've been in, and now you're trying to break above it as we speak. However, you're still below it. And I want to highlight some of the news that was coming out on the day. So we're actually going to start with some of the fundamentals here. If you want, the beige book will be down below, but basically this goes over all 12 districts and how our economies are functioning and working right now. Now, I'm not going to read all of this. I just want to cover the summary here, specifically near the end. Now, you had some mixed feelings about this coming into the market. You actually saw us bounce going into this, but let's establish what was being said. Economic activity was unchanged on balance since early July, with 5 districts reporting slight to modest growth in activity, and 5 others reporting slight to modest softening, which is bad for the market. Now, I want to highlight that they typically put the best part in the beginning. Most districts reported steady consumer spending as households continue to trade down and shift spending away from discretionary goods and toward food and other essential items. Okay, so think about this. You're buying less tech and you're buying more of the essentials because everything's gone up in price. Also, consumer spending, surprise, it's up. But why aren't they talking about the savings rate, which is at an all-time low? Now, you can continue to read through this if you want. I don't really want to read any of this. I wanted to show you the end, which is kind of the most important. While demand for energy products was robust, again, oil, gas, things of that nature, production remained constrained by supply chain bottlenecks for critical components. Okay, this is going into OPEC, things like that. We'll cover that more often, probably the next video. I don't want to cover that today. The outlook for future economic growth remained generally weak. They're expecting a bad GDP, slow growth. This whole GDP growth happening soon, out the window. With context noting expectations for further softening of demand over the next, how long? Next 3 months into the beginning of the year? No, 6 to 12 months. So they expect rates to be hitting us, softening on the markets, tapering from the Fed for the next almost 6 to 12 months, possibly a year, maybe even longer if inflation doesn't get handled. How did the market react from that? It was released around noon and you went crazy. You actually bounced really nice. You mounted your weekly and you pushed up. So that's what's happening there. Now I want to go into what's happening tomorrow. You have Fed speaking. You had some Fed members speaking today, but you have big boy Jerome Powell at 9:10 a.m. So 8:10 Central, I believe, is what time that it's going to be, since this is going to be Eastern. Then you have consumer credit and commercial paper and a few other things. But that's what's happening right now. As we come back into this, what am I looking at? Now, again, I am still bearish on the market. Where does that change? What have I continued to say here? I am bearish until you get back above this around 12.8 region right here. I continue to stand by this, and nothing's going to change from that until we break above it, right? Why? We need to understand the importance of some of these key levels and what's really happening here. Okay, let's just take a step back and realize what happened at this 13,000 level right here. Look at how many times this was tested. 1, 2, we won't count that one. 3, 4, 5. Eventually you get below it. You reject at it. 6, 7, 8. Can't even get back to it. 9, 10. You get back below it. 12. Eventually break back. 13, 14. And then eventually you get back beneath it right now. So 14 tests of this level. On the more recent side, if you're trying to get back above it, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, roughly right here. This is just 5 just to try to get back above it. Okay. Now you're coming back down to this 12,000 level. In my opinion, these levels are going to be very significant and they're going to be hard to get beneath. They're going to have support down there. Why? Because every time you get below one of these key levels, what happens? You tank, you get slaughtered, you get slapped. So I don't want to give it to you as this viewpoint of you're just going to crash into tomorrow and it's going to be great and your puts are going to make thousands. That's never what I'm trying to say here. I'm always being transparent and I show you the size of my position so you know my confidence level. You should never come to this channel and just run aimlessly into trades and just think you're going to be a millionaire. That's stupidity, okay? Do your own research, do your own DD. This is a news channel, if anything. Now, as you're looking here, you're getting some support. You're testing 12,000 once, twice, 3, 4, holding it, and then you bounce back. So buyers are showing up here. That's important to know. But the question is will buyers continue to show up? It's worth mentioning. Right now, you've been bouncing, but every time you bounce into the next day, you've been dipping. So going into tomorrow, the question is this: can buyers continue? Okay? Can buyers show up tomorrow? Can they start breaking this downward trend and pushing you towards 12.5, 12.7, 12.65? If that happens, you're looking at a more bullish case scenario. And if buyers show up and you get above the 12.3 range, I would be looking for some upside at least to 12.5 and then 12.65. That'd be my two ranges, okay? That's what I'd be looking for. I'd actually just knock these off your chart. You're looking for 12.45 to 12.5, then 12.65. So if you can get above this monthly, you're looking to trade it to the upside. However, if you start out the day below this level, I'm looking for downside because what has history told us? That buyers just continue not to show up. Also, we have Powell speaking, so you need to be careful with that. So I'm sitting on my hands until Powell speaks, and then I'll start to make a decision. Going into Powell speaking, I expect chop as usual because that's been kind of the ongoing story here. That's what I'm looking at there. Going into SPY, a little bit more clear here. Now with SPY, I want to address some of these areas. As you're coming into this, you're hitting some resistance, okay? I want to highlight the key areas I'm watching. You have about 400 to 401.5, and then after that, I'm looking around 407 to 406. That's going to be my next range up here. I can actually drag that down just a little bit. That's where I'm going to be targeting. So if you can get above this area, you're looking for a test of 401 and then next 406. If you stay beneath this downward trend, in my opinion, you got to be anticipating a test of 393, which is the monthly and the weekly, and then probably a new low test depending on what Powell says, okay? So it's all about how you open up tomorrow, in my opinion, going into what Powell's saying. I cannot predict what Powell is saying, but if you're looking at what's happened with the market, when did we top off right here? What happened right here? I'll answer the question for you. Powell started talking negative about the market. That's all that happened. And in 3 weeks, you came crashing down. So we have the same guy talking right now. We need to see what he's going to say, how he's going to talk about the market, how he's going to address the beige book, and how he sees inflation being handled with geopolitics as well. These are all things that I'm going to be watching for going into tomorrow. Now, I actually want to highlight Bookmap and Cheddar Flow. Bookmap, again, another reason I wasn't trading today. People will always ask me, they're like, Tyler, if the market's clearly moving up and you think it's going to move up, why don't you trade it? I go into every single day with a plan. If it does not go according to my plan, I do not deviate from that plan. So if I go into the market and I see us attempting to break 12,000 and we just go straight up, I'm not interested in changing to the upside case, right? I'm not looking to flip-flop on my position and just take a million trades a day. No way possible. Going into the day, your CVD was pushing straight up. So the bullish volume was there. I want to address something very quickly as well. Your volume was very low until power hour. I believe into power hour, you were sitting at about 50 million roughly. At the end of power hour, you had pretty great volume, almost 20 million flowing into SPY, and it got almost to 70 million. You probably are at that on the after hours right now. But look, basically from power hour, you move from 39.79 to highs of 39.87. Very minimal movement with all that volume. Now, when we go back and look at cheddar flow, I think we get our answer. We look at SPY, what's happening here. The biggest orders, October 21st, look at these puts coming in. 7.2 million, and they're sweeps. These are aggressive out of the money puts. They're betting on downside here. Going into Qs, what's happening here? You're getting more blocks, but still the biggest orders here are still sweeps, right? You have some blocks coming in, it's worth mentioning. However, you got to address that these are still coming in hot. SPX, definitely a little bit more on the give and go type of side of things here, but I still think you're pretty weak as well. SPX, you have some big splits coming in here, but I like to generally watch SPY and Qs. And then, of course, coming into VIX, we need to talk about as well, big orders on the call side. Now, going into some of the fundamental viewpoints of the market, I'm not going to really talk too much about stocks on the day. I'll go over Tesla near the end of the video. But as we look at VIX, what's happening here? Okay, I want to address where you have been. Okay, so as we look at VIX, what's happened on the past few weeks? It's been a clear downward channel, right? Clear. That's clear. You get above this area when Powell starts speaking, and this is ultimately where you flip to bearish when you break out of our channel, which we talked about for weeks upon weeks. Okay, now you are holding and making higher lows here on VIX, and you are still about at this 24 region. What's the importance of this region right here where you're now chilling? If we go back, what happened every single time we touched this zone in the past? Spoiler alert. There was big bounces almost every time we came to the 25 and 24 region. 1, 2, 3. This was the only time you didn't get it. You actually got it right here. You can actually see that bounce you had at this level when you bounced from 24 all the way up to 29, which is higher than where we're at now. So, look in here. I'm keeping my guard up. I'm watching this as well. And I think it's perfectly timed with Powell speaking as well. I think it's no coincidence where you're at right now. So if Powell comes out and he sticks to the same story, which he has been from the last meeting, Jackson Hole, you have to be taking it as hawkish, downward movement. But it's all depending on how Powell comes out tomorrow. Powell is what's going to move the market, no matter what. If Powell comes out tomorrow and he stays bullish on the market, then you're going to go up, okay? But as of right now, his trend has been for the downside since Jackson Hole, and he's trying to be more conservative with handling this right now. So we need to be addressing what's happening. It's also important to know when we look at oil, I've seen a lot of questions about oil. Oil has been dropping because of one thing and one thing only. It's pure manipulation if you look at what's happening with our reserves, also as well with what Saudi Arabia is doing to us now with OPEC. What are they doing? They've lowered the price of all oil exports going into the EU, but they have raised all prices coming into America. Now, this isn't a problem right now because we're using all of our reserves in order to lower energy prices in the short term. When all those reserves dry up, where do we buy our oil from? The people that just raised the price for us. Spoiler alert. Big issue. And the demand will not be able to just be fulfilled from there because if the price caps get established into Russia's market and with their energy, they said that they will stop selling to those countries that establish those price caps. We could be in a very big issue here. So yes, you've broken down here, but it's come at a very interesting situation, something that's really not happened in a long time. It's sheer manipulation. Go just Google this for yourself. Don't take my word for it. You should question everything that I say and do your own research. This is all just my opinion. J&K, what's going on here? You've actually seen your best day in weeks here on J&K. So J&K, you actually get a really nice bounce here. You start the day out a little bit up. Nice to see. And then guess what? All day long, straight to the upside. This was the most bullish indicator that there was. But if we look at volume on the buy side, on still looking at SPY, SPX, Nasdaq, it wasn't that great. I'm not going to lie to you. In my opinion, it wasn't great. However, you're still pushing on my J&K. This is something good to see. But again, every time that buyers have showed up here, what's happened? You get that upside, and then the next day, boom. So beware of the bears tomorrow. That's my statement on this video. Be careful going into tomorrow because it's looking real shady, specifically with Powell speaking tomorrow. I don't believe in this is a coincidence. It's lining up in a pretty scary manner. Also, DXY, the dollar value, you dropped today pretty drastically. I'm looking for a bounce to start taking place. Why? Look at where you're at. You're at your previous highs now. This is a big support. We want to see a reaction from the dollar. If the dollar starts bouncing, it's no coincidence. The dollar started dropping while the market was going up. I mean, I'm just saying, the writing's on the wall here, people. So be careful. Last thing we're going to look at is going to be the US30, 10 and 30 year inversion. What's happening here? You're still sitting at 95, 96%. Basically haven't moved on the day. Even with all this bullish movement on the market, apparently, that we're seeing a big bounce, everyone wants to talk about it. Guess what? Your yields are still sitting at 96% inverted. Very close, and you're still on the track to the 1%, the full inversion there as well. That's my take on the market, and that's what I'm looking at. Last thing I'm going to look at is going to be Tesla, because I know everyone's so interested here in Tesla. It's probably one of the favorite stocks here to trade. Looking at Tesla, let's talk about it. We mentioned yesterday, 281 to 279 was our level, and you're breaking above it. You're looking at 287 to 288. That's your next range here. You're looking bullish. If you get back below this, you're looking for a retest down to 275, 276. That's all I'm looking at here. Break below 280, 279, boom, retest 276, 275. You hold above this, you're looking for a test of 287, 288. That is it.